Hey there, this is Mike Goldenberg checking in and doing a recording for some Abzan company. Just ran through a league and had an interesting match against Jund, so I wanted to share that here. Alright, let's pull this up. So I'm on the play with a hand I kind of want to pause and look at for a moment. I think this hand kind of showcases how powerful Abzan Company is. I have a bunch of early mana dorks, Collected Company, and a Chord, so I can take advantage of pushing through, either trying to combo off really quickly, because this hand does allow me to go turn 2 Druid, turn 3 Chord for Vizier, turn 4 Company, or I can Company, try to hit Vizier, whichever one I think is better there. Probably Chord than Company. Or I can just try to amass a big board state with Collected Company and Chord and try to win kind of an aggro route. So this hand has a lot of possibilities, which I like a lot. Opponent immediately fatal pushes Noble Hieararch, which I'm okay with because I have Devoted Druid on 2, which means one less removal spell for the push, for the Druid. But they have the Bolt. Right now I'm looking at a black-red deck. I'm thinking either Jund or Mardu Pyromancer. I'm a little landlocked now, though, because even though this hand was very powerful, it didn't have much mana. And if you look at it, I'm stuck on two land sources here. So, do I have to adjust the camera at all? It's kind of new. So I'm stuck on 2 land sources here. So I actually need this Noble to live, and I need to top deck a land so I can actually start casting my spells here. Otherwise, I'm in probably a lot of trouble against this Jund opponent. So they Kulgan's Command, and I discard Chord of Calling because it's not a 2-for-1, so I'm going to get rid of it. They Thoughtseize me, get rid of Shalai, and then they drop a Liliana of the Veil, making me get rid of a Company. I have a land here. I'm not fetching it because I actually want to draw another land, so I don't want to thin. I top deck another Company, which is a little painful. Hoping to top deck into another land. I don't. And at this point, my opponent drops a Dark Confidant with 0 cards in hand, a Liliana on 5, and a Raging Ravine in play. I am very far behind. I top deck a Noble. I decide not to play it, with the game plan of discarding it to Liliana of the Veil so I can draw a 4th land and play Company. Opponent top decks a Maelstrom Pulse, and at this point in the game, I concede. Liliana is going to get ticked up to 6. Even if I get the land and get a Collected Company, even if I draw the top card, it's just game over at this point. But we have a very good sideboard plan against Jund. Let me pull that up for you. Things got moved around a little bit on the compendium. So against Jund, I take out Chord of Callings, couple Druids, couple Viziers, and maybe another mana dork, a Noble over a Bird, because the Bird not only helps me cast for black, and I bring in a lot of black cards sideboard, but also because the Bird has flying, which is sometimes relevant against getting a couple chip damage into a Liliana of the Veil under Gavony Township, or even an Exalted trigger. So I bring in a bunch of removal, Sin Collector, Knight of Autumn, Gideon, and a Scooze. I might bring in more Knight of Autumn. I'll just put that right there, depending upon the matchup and how much I actually want to adjust. Usually I prioritize removal spells over Knights, but if I assume my opponent is going to have a bunch of cages, I want more Knight of Autumns in this matchup. So, on to game 2. So I have a hand which is pretty grindy. You can see 3 lands, a mana dork, 2 removal spells, and Knight of Autumn. If I had to pick a hand against Jund, I wouldn't necessarily pick this, but it does. This hand puts me into the late game, which is where I want to be post-board against Jund. Game 1 against Jund, I just want to combo as fast as possible. I'm a combo deck, I can't grind with them. As you saw, Liliana of the Veil just eats me alive. The other Liliana would wreck me. Scavenging Ooze destroys my deck. Post-board, with this version with 4 Eternal Witness, bringing in a bunch of Path to Exile, Abrupt Decays, and trophies, I can grind with Jund, as long as I prioritize killing Scavenging Ooze, because Scavenging Ooze eliminates all of my grind except for company. Scavenging Ooze hits Eternal Witness triggers, hits Kitchen Finks, and that eliminates all my 2-for-1s. Because other than that, I have more 2-for-1s in my deck than Jund does. So I fetch for a basic, play a Noble, with the intent on potentially dropping Knight of Autumn just as a threat, but they Fatal Pusher. Just fine. If you want to spend your removal spells in my Mana Dorks, I'm okay with that. They drop a Tarmogoyf. I decide, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go straight up and exile it. It's one of the only times when I wish I had a Godless Shrine in my deck, because then I could have Abrupt Decayed instead of advanced their mana, but not having a Godless Shrine is correct 99.9% of the time. So I play some more lands and play a Kitchen Finks, which is one of my awesome 2-for-1s here. Opponent plays a Scavenging Ooze, which I immediately have to kill because that represents lethal against the Kitchen Finks. And then I just pass turn, swinging in for 3. At this point, they still have 4 cards in hand, a Raging Ravine in play, and they Thoughtseize away my Knight of Autumn. So I'm kind of not looking great here. They kill my Kitchen Finks in response to beginning of combat, so I can't attack, but I gain some life and pass on. Bloodbraid into Brutality kills Kitchen Finks. Now at this point in the game, before I draw the Scavenging Ooze, my opponent has 2 cards in hand, a Ravine and a Bloodbraid Elf in play. I have effectively nothing. Scavenging Ooze is one of the best possible draws here, simply because not only shuts off a lot of their strategy, but also because I have a lot of mana and a lot of dead creatures. So I immediately play Scooze and just get him up to size. Hey, kitty. Yeah. He has not been the biggest fan of having the puppy. So the opponent Assassin trophies the Scavenging Ooze, I top deck removal, swing for 1. At this point I stop and say my opponent has 3 cards in hand. I feel like they're a lot of land or removal because they're kind of hoarding them. I'm at 16 life. I do not want to Assassin's Trophy a Bloodbraid Elf. I just don't. My creatures are the same size as Elf, so I'm fine with it being there. The real card I want to watch out for is Raging Ravine. But if you look, my opponent didn't attack with Raging Ravine here. If they had, I would have trophied right then and there and been fine. But they didn't, which means I feel like they're going to play something. So I hold up the trophy, decide just to take 3. When they pass without doing anything, I realize that they probably just either are holding up removal, prioritizing that for some reason against the Hell. Well, I guess it wasn't Hellbent, I was representing company. But I blow up the Ravine because that's the biggest threat they have, and pass turn. Finks is awesome here because it is kind of like my own Bloodbraid Elf. It gives me a 3/2 body, a couple effects, and gives me another body after. I just keep pressure on, hit my opponent, make their Dark Confidants pour. Duskwatch Recruiter is a fantastic top deck at this point in the game, and I just grab a Scavenging Ooze and play it immediately. If now my opponent, if they don't draw an Anger, which they can't cast yet, they have to use spot removal against a full board, and there's a lot of scary creatures between Kitchen Finks, Duskwatch Recruiter, and Scavenging Ooze. Opponent draws a Fatal Push, hits the Duskwatch. I draw Gideon, ally of Zendikar. Finally, I've been running him in my sideboard for months, and I think it's the second time I've actually cast him. People have scooped to him, knowing he's in my hand, like a Jund opponent Inquisitioned me, so I was playing Gideon next turn and just scooped. But I've never, I think it's the second time that I've actually cast him and been happy about it. So, cast him, swing for 3, put my opponent down to 8. They play a Dark Confidant. I grab an Eternal Witness, rebind Abrupt Decay, clear the way, and if you look right here, because Gideon can either emblem or just attack, and I have exactly lethal against my opponent. So game 2 is a grind. I was hellbent, and I came back thanks to the sheer quality of the 2-for-1s this deck has, but between Duskwatch Recruiter, Kitchen Finks, Eternal Witness, Gideon. I didn't even have a Collected Company, but that would have countered as well. So then on to game 3 of the match. I'm on the draw here. My hand here is Gavony's almost is kind of a bad land because it doesn't cast any of my colors. I know I accepted the fact that I'm probably not going to have black mana for a little while for Sin Collector. So I just have a land pass. This hand is very slow. If my Jund opponent plays an aggro game, I know I'm just dead. But if they try foolishly, which a lot of Jund players do against company decks, if they try to control me, if they try to grind me out, my 2-for-1s will eventually overtake theirs. Unless they have Scavenging Ooze, which we've already established is the one big problem my deck has with theirs. So I make a slight error here, and I accidentally F6 through, so I couldn't get a Temple Garden or an Overgrown Tomb, which was really painful. I even almost skipped my turn there. So I just played Vizier as a beater. I did not want to play Duskwatch Recruiter because I figured the first creature I play gets killed anyway, and I'd rather have the Vizier get killed than the Duskwatch Recruiter. I sided out pretty aggressively, so I think I only kept... Yeah, I sided out 3 Viziers in this particular matchup for game 3. I did not want to combo. I kept the combo in, both the infinite mana, which with Noble Ballista, but just infinite mana, and I also kept the infinite life with 1 Seer and 1 Vizier. But without Chords, it's going to get a lot to get there, but I'm not leaning on that at all for this matchup. It's kind of just in there as a nice little way to pull out a victory from the jaws of defeat. So opponent's awesome. They Bloodbraid into a Liliana of the Veil, but Finks is good here. So I just go straight up and try to kill, and opponent trades. I play another Kitchen Finks, which matches up very well against Liliana of the Veil. Opponent thought seizes away my Eternal Witness, plays a Tarmogoyf, and does not uptick Lily, which is important, which means if they have 3 cards in their hand they care about. So I have a couple of different lines I can do here. I can play Sin Collector, I can play Sin Collector and a bird, I can play Duskwatch Recruiter and 2 birds. I can do a lot of different plays here, and I feel like Sin Collector has to be one of them. If our opponent did not plus Lily, they have to have some sort of removal spell I just need to get rid of. And then if I can play some Mana Dorks, I can start Gavony Township and resetting Kitchen Finks as much as I want. So in response to Sin Collector, they bolt my Finks. He comes back, which is fine. Just means I don't get an extra block off of the Goyf. I take a Fatal Push, and I reveal that they have a Bloodbraid Elf. Here, I should pause there. In this particular case, with Gavony Township in play, I should not have played Noble Hieararch. I should have played the bird. For the same reason why I side out Noble Hieararchs instead of... one Noble Hieararch instead of a bird against Jund, oftentimes. I think I should have played the bird here instead of the Noble. So then I could, let's say I top deck a land, then I could Gavony Township and kill Liliana if they don't plus her. Which they're going to do, because unless they draw another Bloodbraid Elf. But still, the correct line would have been play the bird here instead of the Noble, and plan on pitching the Noble to Liliana. Instead, I have to pitch the bird, because Duskwatch Recruiter is too important. I take 4, and then I don't top deck well, but I did top deck that land I was talking about with the bird. And my plan here is to just draw some extra creatures with Duskwatch Recruiter. I let him flip, it's fine. Because he flips, I'm able to play Eternal Witness, grab a Kitchen Finks, and play that Kitchen Finks, which also is conveniently 2 spells, which flips him back. I'm fine with letting this Liliana uptick because I know that I'm slowly gaining incremental advantage against my opponent. They decide to spend their top decked removal spell, killing my Duskwatch. As the board stands right now, my opponent, I don't think they're winning. They do have a Liliana, which I have to respond to, and they have plenty of ground blockers. But I have a Gavony Township and a lot more creatures in play, and then I also have the Horizon Canopy, and I just top deck, in this case, Shalai. So I play the Shalai, which isn't as relevant with the Gavony Township for her second ability. She's more relevant for giving my creatures hexproof. Opponent blood braids into another Tarmogoyf. I decide to attack and just straight up murder that Liliana of the Veil, which makes their Tarmogoyfs larger, but that Liliana would just beat me if I hadn't destroyed it. Now, if you look at the clock here, opponents use 10 more minutes of clock than I have, so I'm thinking, pause right here. How can I win? Everyone got it? I can Eternal Witness for that one Vizier, because I happen to draw the Viscera Seer, and then I can try to gain infinite life. Unless that one card in my opponent's hand is a removal spell, I can gain enough life where they cannot kill me in the next 4 minutes and 44 seconds. In paper, this would be, oh, you win, but online, some opponents say, okay, you have 70 life. That's fine. So, I go with that line. And I decide to keep the Collected Company on top and just gain a ton of life. So let's go through that here. There's an argument that can be made that I should have fetched first, but I wanted to be able to, in case they had some way of responding to whatever I was doing, I wanted a way to fetch and to reshuffle my deck. Like, let's say Collected Company was no longer the card I needed. I needed a removal spell, let's say. Then I could shuffle for that in case they somehow disrupted my combo at split second or some really fringe thing. I liked having that uncracked Windswept Heath. So I just attack for 5, thanks to Exalted, punch my opponent in the face, and then decide, you know what, I'll just gain some extra life just to be safe. They're not down to 2.5 minutes. I attack here. I have them on a 2-turn clock, and I don't even have to activate Gavony. In response to Scavenging Ooze being played, I just gain some more life and go to another Collected Company, I scry to another Collected Company. So at this point in the game, I will have 2 Collected Companies in hand next turn with an amazing board state. I decide to activate Gavony instead of play Collected Company because there's no need, and just in case my opponent top decks Damnation or something silly. Opponent is able to gain 2 life off the Scavenging Ooze, but between the Exalted trigger and the Gavony Township, or her own ability, doesn't matter, I'm able to deal exactly 6 here. I think this match does a good job of showcasing how Abzan Company, my build in particular, with the Finks version, can outgrind Jund. Game 1 I cannot. Game 1 it is I have to combo, or I just have to hope they don't have Scavenging Ooze, because then I still have Eternal Witness and Kitchen Finks and all that value. But games 2 and 3, when I have removal spells for Kitchen Finks, it's a totally different game. It's, as you saw it here. Opponent also game 2, I think they just drew a little bit unlucky in terms of land. In this game, they drew a lot of Tarmogoyfs, which is normally what they want to do against me. They want to be able to have these large creatures. I think our opponent should have attacked at some point there. I think they misrepresented the board state and didn't realize that them attacking could have cost me a couple creatures before I'd gained a ton of life. Once I gained a ton of life, there was no way I was blocking anything. But that is what it is. I still think even if our opponent had attacked, I do not think that would change the outcome of this match, simply because Gavony Township, Shalai, Kitchen Finks, Eternal Witness, there's too many, as I keep saying, there's too many 2-for-1s in this deck for a fair deck to compete with. Unless they have a way of disrupting the 2-for-1s, like with Scavenging Ooze here. So that was the match. I kind of like doing these. Let me know how you guys feel about these replay videos. If this had been a live recording, it wouldn't have been a few minutes. It would have been, what, I ate 20 minutes a clock. Opponent ate 25. Sorry, I only ate like 15. Opponent ate almost the entire clock. It's a long video in that case, plus sideboarding time. So I feel like this is a quick way I can kind of like showcase certain matches and how they play out, while also not taking 3 hours of your time. So let me know how you feel about that. I'll still keep doing live recordings, but let me know if you like these too. I'll see you in the next one.